Mountain News this morning. Before playing to raise some major money for flood relief, Kentucky basketball players stopped by one community in our region to hand out some winter essentials to keep people warm. And flood debris removal crews meet with state officials to find some common ground as they continue to clean up our region after disaster.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News this morning.
Good morning to you. I'm Dakota Makris. It is almost 6 o'clock here on this Monday morning. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. And we have to head back to work, unfortunately. I've been here since about 4:30. I'm telling myself, let's head over to Brandon for a look at our forecast. You know, I'm supposed to get here like at 4, but
no, I didn't hear anything.
Nobody heard anything.
That's right.
So don't be telling. Tattletale. Nope. But no, it's all right. It's Monday. We're here.
Exactly. It is Monday and a long week to go. But you know what? We're going to take it in stride because it is the last full week of October. Can you believe
it?
That?
It is. No. Oh, this year's flying by.
No. And you and I were talking about earlier, we're excited about a sandwich. It's usually about to come back this time of the year, and we've not seen anything yet. So
no. So y'all, if y'all hear whenever the McRib is coming back, please let us know.
You got to let us know. All right. All right. Let's get into it this morning as we head out the door. You're seeing over at Pikeville at US 119, US 23, the intersection over that way. Still quiet this morning. 50 over there at Pineville Commons, or close to it there. Temperatures ranging from the 30s to the 50s this morning. 36 Clintwood and Jonesville are our cool spots, and our warm spot is 53 up at the National Weather Service office at Jackson this morning. So all over the board. Statewide already 65. Carbondale, Illinois, Paducah, Kentucky, 58 Owensboro, Clarksville, Tennessee, and then you see the further east you go, the colder it is. 38 the Tri-Cities, 44 Knoxville and Cincinnati this morning. Day planner, we are going to go up into the upper 70s, so a very nice day. We'll add a few clouds in late, but overall a dry day today. Tomorrow, maybe not so much. We'll talk more about that coming up here in just a little bit. Dakota?
All right, Brendan, thank you. Well, the Blue-White game was held at the Appalachian Wireless Arena on Saturday. Now, prior to the game, UK men's basketball team made a stop at Jenny Wiley State Resort Park to meet with fans and hand out some winter essentials. Our Jordan Mullins has that story.
Coach John Calipari, as well as the UK and U-Pike men's basketball teams, all came to Jenny Wiley State Resort Park on Saturday to let folks know that they were not alone.
We don't want anyone, Elizabeth included, to think we've forgotten. We haven't forgotten, and it's going to still take time for people to recover from what they're going through, so we want to be there to help.
Interacting with fans and giving those affected by flooding some much-needed winter essentials, like jackets, hoodies, and gloves.
The cold weather's coming. People need, this is a very needed thing for a lot of people.
But more flood relief is coming thanks to generosity from the team.
They said, let's go play a game just to make them feel better, to pick them up. And that game is going to make, I believe, about $150,000, all of it going to flood relief.
Spreading the love.
I'll be 65 years old in April, and I've never felt so much love from people in my life, never.
And making a difference.
He brings a lot of joy to a lot of people in this area. Those Wildcats are great.
In the hearts of Cats fans across the region. In Floyd County, Jordan Mullins, WYMT Mountain News.
The Kentucky men's basketball team weren't the only ones in Pikeville for the Blue-White game. Governor Andy Beshear made a trip to accept a check for the more than $160,000 from ticket proceeds. Nearly 3 months after flooding, Governor Beshear reflected on what this means to the region.
Well, after we saw the outpouring from the entire world in the West, I knew two things. Number one, God is good, and number two, so are our people. And we come to each other's aid, opening our hearts and our homes for each other in our time of need. This is really neat, though.
Well, the governor says the money donated will go to rebuilding at least 8 homes lost to flood waters. After a protest they called a safety stand down on Friday, flood debris removal crews met with state officials to find common ground on regulations. The regulations have been inconsistent for hired contractors, as they say each week a new rule is put in place. With the safety of Eastern Kentuckians at risk, local contractor Jared Breeding says they should be getting as much debris out of the way as possible.
Common sense tells you that everything in the creek needs removed for the creek to flow freely to get rid of the water when we have high water risks.
Well, he says state officials will soon be meeting with the governor to discuss those regulations. Well, Apple Red is a legal aid group that typically focuses its efforts on supporting low-income members of the communities it serves. But when the floods hit our region, the organization stepped in to offer free services for people seeking disaster relief. Jeremy Tom shares the story of one of its clients.
After becoming a first-generation college graduate, Kristen Back moved away from the mountains and settled in Madison County. Her family tree spreads across southeastern Kentucky, and a late-night call from her mother in July made her realize that its roots would soon be pulled right out of the ground. Flooding made her hometown of Neon unrecognizable and put her family's lives in jeopardy, especially her grandfather's, Donnie Q. Back, who lived in Jeremiah.
He said it just sounded different than it does when it's normally raining, so he opened the door and that's when all the water came pouring in.
The water continued to rise in Donnie's home, and he didn't leave until later that day when Kristen brought him to safety. His home left a complete loss. A few days later, she noticed his condition began to deteriorate. Kristen says his oxygen tank ran out on the day of the floods, causing brain damage.
He didn't know where he was.
And were those issues he'd ever had before?
No.
Kristen took her papaw to the hospital, where he was then moved to the ICU and eventually to hospice care. 3 weeks after Donnie lost his home of 40 years, Kristen lost her grandfather.
He was right then, getting to be with my granny, his wife, be with my dad and my uncle. So I knew it was an okay thing. It just hurt really bad.
She took another hit when FEMA denied her application for assistance with the loss of her grandfather's home. That's when she found Apple Red.
She was one of those clients that whenever we met, we cried.
Kristen shared her story with attorney Whitney Bailey, and now she's on the path towards appealing her denial. Having been on the brink of giving up herself, Kristen knows well that her two hands could only carry so much of the burden these floods have brought. So she urges fellow flood victims not to give up and to look for a helping hand instead.
I've never been more proud to be from that community. It's just a reminder of how lucky we all were to have each other.
Jeremy Toms, WKYT.
Bailey says those affected by the flood can reach Apple Red through its flood intake hotline by calling the number you see on your screen. The Small Business Association will be closing its business recovery centers this week. The two centers in Knott and Letcher counties will close Tuesday. The SBA says it's seen a decrease in businesses and organizations applying for disaster loans. The deadline to apply for those loans is October 28th. Well, people in Pike County will want to keep an eye out for road changes and possible delays this week. In a release, the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet said Kentucky 194 East near the Phelps community will be down to one lane. That's at mile point 55.5, excuse me there. The closing will be this Tuesday from 8:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. to repair a cross drain. Drivers are encouraged to be vigilant of workers and their equipment in that area and of course expect some delays. The state released its new COVID-19 map recently and it's not as green as it was last week. If you take a look at this map, you can see the majority of eastern Kentuckians are yellow now, but counties like Clay, Jackson, and Laurel are still green. 4 counties are red: Floyd, Letcher, Johnson, and Magoffin. Only Letcher County was red last week. The latest positivity rate was 8.5%. Health officials in the U.S. are bracing for a possible winter COVID surge. Right now, the overall number of cases is actually dropping, but several variants are fueling concerns of a spike. One doctor has dubbed them Scrabble variants because of all the letters, including in the variants BQ.1 and BF.7. At least 6 variants are in the U.S. right now, and health officials want to make sure you're protected and your kids are safe.
The way that the FDA and the CDC has approved the new vaccine is it has to be at least 2 months after the patient has completed their primary series or had their most recent booster with the primary series completed. So there are quite a few children that are still eligible just to get that first booster, and they can go ahead and get the bivalent vaccine as that first booster.
Children ages 5 to 11 can now get their Pfizer bivalent COVID-19 booster shots.
6:09 here on this Monday morning, and a good morning to you. We'll take a look at the satellite radar, and not much to track as we head toward the 6:10 time frame this morning. We are looking again at a few clouds out there in the western counties, but not a whole lot to see. Temperatures, the big story. 36 Clintwood and Jonesville. We're looking at 53 in Jackson, 52 in Logan, and then a lot of 30s and 40s out there with 49 now in Pikeville, 50 in Moorhead, and 41. Some cooler spots out there toward Irvin and Williamsburg. London is at 40. 62 by 11 o'clock, 77 this afternoon. We'll see a few more clouds, but a mainly sunny day out there today. Enjoy it because changes are coming. Dakota?
All right, Brendan, thank you so much. Well, coming up here on Mountain News this morning, the Trump Organization prepares to go on trial for alleged tax crimes. And former President Donald Trump's longtime chief financial officer taking the stand as a star witness.